Gentlemen, another solid win there for Samsung Galaxy, making it 2-0 on the series so far. And gentlemen, let's go right back through the whole situation, starting with Champ Select. We had some thoughts about changing things up, especially dropping the Nidalee ban, which we saw Samsung ban out themselves. They go for the Olaf in place of it. All for naught.
I mean, the draft was super interesting because the big priority here is these Jace comps. You know, we've seen a bit of Jace this tournament. SKT looked really good on it. The no-tank Jace comp, they pulled it off, but super hard. You know, the one flank and you're kind of done. And so you're like, okay, but they do have a tank. They have the Rek'Sai, but consider the Rek'Sai build here. Titanic Hydra was the rush. The tankiness wasn't there early enough, so it still was a very brittle front line. And then, you know, one time they don't respect the teleport play, and from there the game snowballed fast.
Yeah, and to me, Samsung picked a very strong fighting team here, but the impressive thing for me is that they kind of won in a slightly different way. All of the prep leading up to this was thinking that they had a much more narrower champ pool. This was the first Orianna we've seen from Crown since he's been on Samsung, and he's been on that team for a while. So even though it was a little bit slower, and as Kobe mentioned at the end of the cast, there were some weaknesses in the early game, their team play was exquisite, and this was a different type of team composition that Samsung was still able to crush with, which makes it even scarier for Cloud9 going forward.
I think we have to address the change that Cloud9 made, going smoothly from a roaming support into a laning phase, and they're able to keep themselves in the lane for a little bit, but eventually lost that 2v2 and lost pressure. But the one thing that I want to kind of shed light on why the game stalled out wasn't so much for Cloud9 being able to lane very well. While the top lane did go relatively well from Jace, I did feel like a big reason why the game stalled out was Ambition getting caught out at the 7-minute mark. He has to burn his flash because he doesn't respect the pressure in the top side. And in this composition from Samsung, if you don't have the Skarner flash to initiate and make plays, you're not going to be able to punish until you break the laning phase, until it gets to a point of grouping up. And that's what allowed Cloud9 to really stall out the game. Otherwise, those early moves like that dragon play would have been complete disaster.
Yeah, so we did see a bit, as you mentioned, a slower start to the game. And you've already kind of identified some of the reasons why you think that might have been. But I do have to recognize at least the fact that across all lanes, it seemed like C9 was stacking up a little bit better, right? We weren't seeing solo kills in the top lane between Cuvée and Impact.
Yeah, but I think that does tie in a little bit to what Crumbs was saying. When you have a pre-6 Skarner, his Skarner, his gank threat is not very good, and then a post-6 Skarner without flash has very poor gank threat. So the fact that, you know, C9 was able to stall out the game is actually Samsung wasn't pushing their advantage because they didn't have a jungler. C9 should be able to gain advantages because Meteos is able to make aggressive plays. But when the difference between Samsung making a mistake is the game stays even. When Cloud9 makes a mistake, they go down 5,000 gold.
And it felt like Cloud9 was just like a soccer mom minivan. They were just unable to reach high speeds because they had such an advantage in the top side, and they were just not able to push harder. They got to a point where you would have felt like the Jason to the Kennen matchup. We've seen it before with the Maw of Malmortius is able to really bully that lane. If you put a little bit more pressure, once he has that spike, you can just hammer it all the way into the tier 2 turret and get turrets that way. But we just never saw them get to that setup, and I have to, you know, put a little bit of blame in the jungle, in the actual pathing and making sure he's established with vision.
I mean, you put the blame in the jungle. I was taking notes. I was looking for when are the QSSs coming? Because if you're going to take this no-tank, high-damage comp, you have to be respectful somewhere. The draft isn't, you know, you're opening yourself up to engage, so you need to have an answer. The QSS for the Skarner ultimate. But 35 minutes into the game, there was 0 QSS. I believe as the game ended, there was still not a single QSS. If it's going to be the Titanic Hydra Rek'Sai walking up, he's going to lose that Guardian Angel instantly. If it's not, they're going to lose their life instantly. So I feel like if you're going to make the big moves, you need the items to back it up. They went full damage, and suddenly no one can push because they're just going to get Skarner ulted and die.
And while we talk about a slow early game, or at least a slower one than game one, Samsung's mid to late game decision making is still just as crisp. And I want to pull up our replay, which is brought to you by Acer here at a 4-0 at 26.5 minutes, putting Samsung ahead and being tied in gold all game. After being tied, rather, gold all game.
And it's all going to be from the TP right here from Cuvée with the chain of the Karma and the Skarner. Immediately a 4-man ultimate that's going to be Cuvée recognized this Crown recognized situation, flash with the Orianna ultimate, and as soon as that happens, you're just stuck in that AoE without any tank. And while Impact's decision to stay here is questionable, as he could have stayed behind to poke, the idea behind Samsung's execution, setting up the vision before and going for that play is just so crisp.
And you know things are going well when your Caitlyn is flashing forward to get Hurricane Bolts on the combo team. And Papa Smithy, to your point about the QSSs on Cloud9, I don't think it actually would have helped them there. Never did I actually see an Ambition ultimate that led to a positive play, and Cloud9 was trying to build damage. But they were losing in the huge, giant team fights, and they just did not have the initiation or the positioning to pull off positive plays, and Samsung did.
But I do love your spotlight on Caitlyn in particular, the aggressive flashes, the playstyle. Ruler actually made his debut in the Challenger scene this year, so the first split of this year, came third on Stardust, joined Samsung, very little known about this player. A rookie going from Challenger to LCK to Worlds and playing at this level with this confidence, not dying once this game, that's the stuff dreams are made of.
And I think we can say that for the entire Samsung bottom lane. When you consider that Core JJ was a North American LCS AD carry, then a Korean AD carry, and has played something like 16 to 19 games on support in his entire career, and now they're getting 2v2 kills with a rookie AD carry and a recently converted support on the world stage, is just insanely impressive.
You got to hand it to him there. And so here we are, gentlemen, 2-0 lead for Samsung Galaxy. That means do or die time for C9. So looking ahead to this game 3, real quick down the line, what do you want to see out of this squad for maybe a slimmer of hope?
I think you got to get rid of the Karma. The Karma seems to be a very difficult thing to deal with. The speed up enables a lot of the compositions from Samsung with the speed onto the Olaf, onto the Rek'Sai or the Skarner, as well as the laning phase. We saw them even have difficulty killing Karma itself, and it's not a good matchup into Rek'Sai, one of the best Meteos champions. So target that support pool and maybe find a little bit of a better advantage that way.
Well, it's do or die time, so I think you have to dangle a carrot here for Samsung to take bait. Because the one thing you can say about Samsung, the only game they have lost this tournament, they picked 3 losing lanes and a jungler that just couldn't really make anything happen. So maybe you dangle the victor, you dangle something risky. Okay, teams have tried it and failed, but so far they've tried 2 different playstyles, neither worked. If you can at least get some pressure in your lanes, if you can get those winning lane matchups, that's what I think they have to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much of a chance, but if you're going to go out in an exciting fashion. I want to see Meteos as Zach. I don't even think he's been practicing it that much, but they have had a lack of initiation, and they need to be able to shut down Crown in the mid lane. Orianna Zach, go for it.
I would love to see that myself, Jat. Well, when we return, it's match point between Samsung Galaxy and Cloud9, so stay with us.
You were saying about lane. You were saying Ruler flashes over the tidal wave. Tidal wave flashed out by Ambition. Slicing Maelstrom on 3 members. The shockwave from Crown and Cloud9 is melting. We see Meteos go down. He's the front line. That's a lot of squishy health bars, and I don't think Samsung will stop.
Oh, take a turn. There he's in 7. Good job.
2 down now. Jensen, 60 seconds on the clock. Smoothie just gets auto down by Ruler as they follow up with the damage, and Samsung are up now, 2-0.